What's going on, YouTube? We got another video here tonight with the Dunces. We got Isandro. We got Jordan. How y'all doing today, fellas? How are you?
Good evening, my fellow brothers.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Isandro, you just stayed quiet, and that's okay. But today we're gonna talk
That's no
about
more.
some things going on in the NBA. Just what we believe as non-experts, but as YouTube experts, because that's what we decided to
I
call
mean,
ourselves.
how long have we been on the YouTube,
I
right?
think I think it's been a little over 2 months, bro. Like,
We're
hey,
seasoned vets. Yeah,
that's right. So what we want to do is talk a little bit about weaknesses around the NBA teams, mainly the bigger teams. Some small mediocre teams, not really much bottom tier. But we'll get into it more as we go along. And I just wanted to start off kind of with the team that Isandro and I spoke about yesterday, and it's the Clippers. As we saw a few days ago, they lost to the Dallas Mavericks by 50. They didn't have Kawhi, but another thing that they don't have is a point guard, which I believe is their biggest weakness. But I'll get into my take a little later on. But on this one, I want to start off with Isandro. Isandro, what do you think is a weakness that the Clippers have?
definitely the point guard and the leader, but also the mentality. We definitely talked about this yesterday, but I'll reiterate. They beat the Lakers. They won the first two games. They beat the Lakers, but then the Lakers beat the Mavs, and then the Mavs ended up beating them by 51 points. It just seems like they whenever it's like a lesser team, maybe to them that's not the Lakers or maybe another big team, they just fold. They just don't care. So it's like their mentality is like, oh, we want to win against the bigger teams. We want to face the Lakers and in the Western Conference Finals. But how are you going to get to the Lakers if you can't even beat a Mavs team? So
Right.
it's definitely the point guard that I feel is the weakness, but also that mentality.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But Jordan, what do you think is the Clippers' biggest weakness?
I think the Clippers, when they're at their best, meaning everybody's healthy, they play amazing. They're one of those teams that they need every single piece to play their perfect game style, right? But then Kawhi's out, it's like as they just fell apart, and that just shows you, like Isandro said, their leadership. Really, I feel like point guard, it would be useful for them, but I think with PG, like he knows how to like control the tempo of the game, and he's good at that. But his leadership has shown is just really bad. Because again, you feed off your leader, and when Paul George, you're the leader, and you play that horribly, and as a team, you make 4 threes out of 33 shots. That's just horrible. Paul George didn't even get past 25 points. He stopped at 24. So that just says everything. Um,
That's insane.
Leadership is really bad. So that's where it all starts from the best player.
Yeah, I agree with what you both say. I am gonna say this though. I slightly disagree with what you said about Paul George. I think he can do the offense. He can carry an offense when he has to. But look, at the end of the day, great teams they always have solid point guards. And Patrick Beverly is a solid defensive point guard, but offensively, he doesn't prove it. Like he can't. That's just not his game. That's why and their offense, it's the same thing every time. Run baseline to the right or run baseline to the left, kick out to a mid-range shooter, kick out to a three-point shooter who probably isn't even wide open because teams know how to play that. If they play in the half-court setting, they can't do much with Kawhi or without Kawhi on the court. So what they need is a point guard, a steady point guard who can initiate offense, bring stability to that team, and put players in a position to where they're utilized, you know, to the best of the capabilities. That's why Chris Paul would have been perfect, Rondo would have been perfect, but sadly they didn't get those, and they can't right now. The players that they can get, I believe George Hill would be perfect for that team. Just to, he has that relationship with Paul George is one thing, but another thing is that he's a player, very smart. He has the championship, behind him, or well, he went to championship game, and just he'll get the team to another level that they probably need. And I'm not saying that George Hill is that guy that like, okay, if they get him, they're gonna win, but just somebody like that to really initiate the offense because that's all they really need because it's looking really bad right now. And sure they won, but they still lost by 50 to the Clippers, and I mean to the Mavs, and they shouldn't that shouldn't happen.
I wouldn't say definitively they need a point guard, but they definitely do need that leader, as me and Jordan previously said. A leader or it's like a floor general, somebody who's going to be vocal. Because if we look at a lot of the teams, a lot of the best teams in the past, they had decent point guards, but really the star player on said team, they would be like a LeBron James or something, or a Michael Jordan, we'll say. And they didn't have amazing point guards who were leading their team into the playoffs. They had leaders, and I think that's probably going to be the more important thing.
That
Yeah,
is,
yeah. I mean, just this Clippers team showing as a whole that they can't perform under pressure, pretty much. Because not only don't they need a point guard, but who is rebounding? The
yeah,
Mavs didn't even have Kristaps Porzingis playing. We know how good he can be. So and they got out rebounded by like 20 rebounds. And on the glass, it wasn't even like on the offensive glass, it wasn't even close. So I mean, when your offensive rebounding, your defensive rebounding is bad, your passing is bad, you can't make a shot, you're just destined to get destroyed by any team. I don't care if you're the Knicks, the freaking I don't care. I don't even care, man. Like the Cavs
yeah.
were playing though, but it's just bad.
Yeah, and I kind of said that yesterday. I said that Kristaps was playing. I was wrong. Apparently, he wasn't. I checked the stats after. I think I just wanted to believe that Kristaps was there just to make it a little easier for the Clippers, but no. And that just goes to show that Clippers, in reality, they're not championship contenders until they prove it. I mean, obviously, it is just 4 games or 3 games in, but you shouldn't lose by 51 to a Kristaps Porzingis-less Mavs team that really
You
just has
shouldn't lose
Luka.
to 51 to any team, let alone a
Exactly.
team like, yeah.
Exactly. But there also is another team that they just won today by a whole lot, a 47-point victory, but they lost by 20 to the Knicks a few days ago. And that's the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that I believe all three of us had as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, again, it's still early, but that's why we do these videos, right? They're just way too early predictions or way too early analysis, but stuff that can still, linger throughout the season. So with Milwaukee, what do you guys think is their biggest weakness? I'll start off with Jordan on this.
Hmm. I think it comes to again because I feel like they really. I think over throughout the year, they're gonna come together. They're gonna gel. I don't really think they have a big weakness because they've shown that they can shoot the three ball. Defensively, they could be good, but again, once they gel, right now, defensively they're gonna be a little iffy. So I guess I'll say that defensively, that'll be their biggest weakness, but not by a big margin. But I think right now they're a really solid team. They look really good. And Giannis didn't even have to play great today. He didn't even have to play good today, and they won by that much against a Heat squad that we know they already look solid in the beginning of the year. So I think it's a good sign for the Bucks.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Jimmy Butler didn't play, but it was still a very impressive win by the Bucks as a whole. Even with if, like you said, if Giannis didn't play and the other guys played like that, yeah, they definitely would have won. But Sandro, what do you think is the Bucks' biggest weakness?
I was just, and I said this on the last, but I was just so confused because Giannis plays terrible, and then they win by, like, obviously it's against the Warriors, but they destroy the Warriors by like 40 points or something, right?
Yeah,
Middleton goes off. Next game, Giannis and Middleton, they're doing what they need to be doing. They're playing well. Then they lose by 20 to the Knicks. Now, so it kind of just feels like their good performances are kind of reactionary, which I feel like that's not what you're supposed to be doing in the playoffs. You should be go into a game playing well, not just because you shouldn't play well. Obviously, you should be, but your main reason for playing well shouldn't just be because you lost by 20 to the Knicks. Obviously, we knew they were going to come out flying and they were going to, you know, go all out on this one. But you can't be losing 20 to the Knicks and then have that as your motive to do well. You got to be, I want to see some consistency from this team, is what I'm saying.
yeah, and I completely agree with what you said because that was going to be my biggest weakness. It's their inconsistency. They were bricked every single one of them against the Knicks. They did not shoot well. Besides Middleton, who Middleton actually is making the case as the best player on the team with the first 3 games because he's been doing amazing on both ends. Um, but today, we see guys that we don't normally see on the roster, like this kid from Georgia who, was a rookie, hitting threes like it's nothing. Another kid, Jordan Wara, another one, shooting and making them. Like they're just so inconsistent, and it's been like that for about 2 years now, regardless of who's in that group. So, and honestly, it all falls short. It might 50 to 60% of it falls on Giannis, but there's a very big percentage that it falls on Coach Bud. He needs to like
I knew you were gonna say that.
he needs to
100%.
he needs to change a few things in that offense, man, and it's just not looking like they might be like we said before, they might be the number one seed in the East, and that's fine. But come playoff time, you can't play the way that you guys played these first three games if you're actually going to be contending to win a championship. And the Bucks really need to work on their inconsistency and bench depth, because if their bench plays like how they played, at least 70% of what they played today, they could win it all, hands down, because they're that good of a squad. But they really need to prove it, come playoff time. So, again, small sample size, but there's still a lot of work of improvement, and Giannis really needs to shoot. Like he needs to get on
And
that.
you want to ask yourself too, like, does the Bucks coach know how to make an adjustment? Because I don't think he knows how to do that.
Yeah,
And it's very simple. It's not hard. Like, oh damn, brain fart. The coach for the Heat.
Spolstra.
Well, sure. Yeah, we saw how amazing he did in the playoffs. But why did he do so amazing? Because of the adjustments he made in the playoffs. Legendary adjustments.
Yeah,
And all the Bucks need to do are minor adjustments. They're not big adjustments. Just change the plays up a little bit. They have so many great ball handlers, great rebounding, great passing, great scoring. It's like how are you not going to be a great team to take it to the finals? So
yeah,
they have no excuse, and they're DiVincenzo is balling. Like I still have Bucks first place. The way like what I've seen so far, and again once everything gels, like I think for every team they still have to gel. They're gonna be really scary. DiVincenzo, BJ Augustine.
yo, Augustine's a baller. Baller.
I love Augustine.
Yeah,
And
Yo,
then, like you said, Middleton, and like I said on the previous podcast, this is gonna allow Middleton to step up big time. It's gonna allow him to score way more. There's more breathing room. I mean, when you're forced the ball, it's not really a good sign. But now he's shooting comfortably. So that's always a good sign.
yeah, definitely.
and who
Um,
was the other coach that we were talking about in a pod that didn't want to make adjustments? Then he lost his job.
D'Antoni.
D'Antoni, exactly.
Yeah, it it's kind of very 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 similar how they're looking. But hopefully the Bucks can improve on that, because it really sucked for Giannis, getting paid all that money just to do nothing. I mean, obviously, get your money, get the bag, but at the end of the day, you want to win championships, and until that team really improves, it won't happen. So, but yeah, that's just another team that I wanted to quickly talk about. Um, but now there are other teams around the NBA. I think those two were just the main ones I wanted to talk about because of those big losses that they had. But there are other teams around the league that definitely are great, but that can definitely work on something. Nobody's perfect. No team is perfect. And I do want to talk about the other side of LA, the Lakers. The Lakers are obviously the previous champs this past season. Do they have any weaknesses? And if so, what are they? Isandro, what do you think as a weakness for the Lakers?
I think it really is just. I feel like this is one that can be improved upon really easily, but it is a really important one, just gelling and making sure that you're like we said with the Bucks consistency, but definitely gelling. Um, like I think Harrell had what 9 points. It wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't like 22 points like he had the other night.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I agree with that too. Like, there's just it's so many new pieces, and last season they really honed in on defense, whereas this season I think they shifted gears a little bit more towards offensive firepower with having Schroeder and Harrell. Harrell coming off your bench, Schroeder really playing a lot more with that second unit. But Marcus Gasol, he's getting older. You see it now. Now, like with LA, like you see that his age is finally catching up to him, and it sucks because if this was Gasol 5 years ago, man, this Lakers team would have been outstanding. But obviously, this isn't the case, and him and AD, it's solid, a solid front court. AD obviously makes him look 10 times better than what he is, but Gasol is just like you see it, a lot of little adjustments that he has to make. And the bench mob, Caruso running that second unit, it's okay, but I'd much rather have Schroeder. If Schroeder didn't come out publicly and say, "Oh yeah, I'm done with this whole, being a bench guy. Like I feel like I should start," he had no reason to say that. He's coming into a championship team. Like Schroeder, I'm sorry, you're great, but you should do whatever the team asks of you. And if the team asks you to come off the bench, then you should come off the bench. And I think him and Harold would have been great pick and roll, and they've shown it. So it's just really just that inconsistencies that they might show, but at the same time, they are the defending champs. You have LeBron and AD. What weaknesses can you have? But Jordan, what do you think?
So I think the biggest weakness for the Lakers now, believe it or not, would be the ability to like another floor general, right? Because we saw how Rajon Rondo influenced the Lakers team so much, energy on offense and defense. And watching that game yesterday with the Lakers and Blazers, it was just ugly in the fourth because you had the ball was going First of all, LeBron up until the fifth minute had all the fourth quarter points. So what do you do if your player's hot? You keep on feeding him. Then the ball went to Shooter. What happened with Shooter? Turnovers, missed shot, and then he had a couple buckets. But still, you feed. Like if LeBron is on the court, you give him the ball. You allow him to do what he does best. Not only Rondo, but I think Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Those two players are amazing at defense. Especially JaVale McGee, rim protecting. He was amazing, and that was something that yesterday I saw. I saw some shots that could have been blocked, 100%, if JaVale or Dwight were there. I think Marcus Gasol is good when it comes to uh, that floor general ability, but defensively, like you say, he's getting old.
Yeah,
So, and you see him a lot, many times, just waiting outside in the 3-point line. Like no big man should be outside in the 3-point
yeah.
line. No, not at all. I mean, he could hit it once in a while, but that's never a good play style to have. So I think that's just gonna be like a minor defect in their game, but they'll get used to it. They'll gel a little better, like Isandro said. So
Yeah.
I think they'll be alright.
Yeah, what do you think, Sandro?
I actually agree with Jordan because we were talking about this before how they really leaned into the offense with their off-season acquisitions, and they kind of just their defense kind of got, and then Johnny got really defensive. I remember this, but then their defense, it definitely did take a dip, and we weren't saying that they were bad defensively, but you got to acknowledge that yeah, they lost some really good defenders.
Yeah, and like Jordan said it, he hit it on the nose, right? There's so many shots that could have been blocked. And there were people saying, "Oh, Harold, he averaged a block a game last season." Yeah, he did, but a block a game doesn't show everything. Defensively, Harold is a significant downgrade than Dwight Howard and JaVale. Even if it was just one of those players, like he's a significant downgrade. Yeah, he's better offensively, but even then, he's rim running, which is why Schroeder should be coming off the bench. But again, they are the Lakers championship team. If anybody's gonna tell them what to do, it's LeBron, and I think Frank Vogel deserves some more respect from the players. So, you know, of all the teams that we mentioned so far, I think Lakers they'll be fine. But now shifting gears to the Eastern Conference, my Nets. Just wanted to show it off. What's a big weakness that they have? And I'm actually gonna start off on this one only because I am the Nets fan, and I see it. I see it a lot. Look, defensively, okay, we're not the best. We're solid. We're solid defensively, okay, but man, there's some problems that I see there, and the main thing I see, and I love DeAndre Jordan for bringing Kyrie and KD to Brooklyn, but I hate the way that he plays because he doesn't know, not that he can't, because he can, but he doesn't want to grab those defensive and offensive rebounds. He doesn't want to play defense. He just wants to stand there and let the ball go out to anybody. He wants to tap it out. Like, look, you're a big dude. You're 6'11". I know you're older, but you were once known to be a high flyer. Prove it. Like, jump. Like, be that guy. Be that mentor to Jared Allen. And what does a good mentor do? He proves it by playing the game the right way, and he's not doing that, right? So, defensive rebounding, offensive rebounding. Look, we're getting killed on the glass, both ends, and it's just not fun to watch. Like, I bet you, like, if we were to play the Cavs, we could see Drummond get like 40 rebounds like it's nothing because we can't do it, right? We just can't, and it sucks to see that. And plus, now that we just lost Dinwiddie, we lost another firepower. But at the same time, bringing in the next guy up, right? And that's I think that's always been Brooklyn's mentality ever since that whole era of Paul Pierce and KG leaving and us restarting. It's the next man up. So right now TLC, he balled out in the first half. Now he just has to show that consistently. Um, but honestly, I'm not too worried about that. My main thing is defensively that we need to get better and just try a little bit harder, because if we do that, those two games that we lost, we definitely could have won. Hands down. But what do you guys think? That's just me venting. But Jordan, what do you think about Brooklyn? And what's
I
the week?
mean, I said it before. We know what Nets are gonna do offensively, and what they're doing is beautiful. Like the percentage of shooting from three. KD's back. Kyrie is a beautiful specimen of a basketball player, but defensively, they are booty cheeks. When Russell Westbrook is a better offensive and defensive rebounder than both Allen and DeAndre Jordan, that's obviously a problem. And there's no denying that. Russ is already averaging a triple double, but no. But on a serious note, obviously defensively, because we know if, like you said, if Nets get a little better defensively, they're gonna go to the chip, but they have to get better defensively because if they don't, it's just they can score as many points, but if they can't stop the other team from scoring, there's no point. It's just gonna be a back and forth, back and forth. And like those last two games, they lost by what, 5, then
Yeah.
2. So they would have had those games back, like you said. And then now you lose Dinwiddie, and how consistent are we gonna trust Kevin Durant and Kyrie? And then Kyrie, he's also a big liability on defense. So it's just a whole lot of questions on defensively. And like you said, even if Kyrie tries a little more, or DeAndre tries a little more, it's all about effort. How much are you willing to put the effort on defense? The next team will be way more better. So
And just a quick point on that, like Jordan said with the Clippers, right? If Paul George just shows a little bit more leadership, and you too, Isandro, you said it too. Like if they just show a little bit more leadership on both ends, obviously the team's gonna feed off of that. Same thing here. If DeAndre Jordan tries a little bit more, obviously the rest of the guys are gonna do the same. Same thing with Kyrie, KD. Like these guys have to be like, all right, young cats, like you guys are good defensively. Now be great. And obviously there's some liabilities, but I don't want to get too much into it because I could talk about the Nets all day. So, Isandro, what do you think is a big
You
week?
got, you guys remember when AD pushed LeBron to do defense last year?
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember that, but I do agree with that point because you do need to, even LeBron James at times he needs to be held accountable on the defensive end. And if LeBron James needs to be held accountable at times, everybody needs to be held accountable, especially on this Nets team. So I agree with that. But I kind of want to talk about that Dinwiddie thing because I saw a stat. It said that Kyrie and KD were not on the floor for 11 minutes, and in those 11 minutes, it made all the difference against Charlotte, and they ended up losing. And I think my biggest thing is the question marks regarding the second unit. Obviously, there's a little bit on the defensive end too, but definitely the inconsistencies with these guys. Because Karis LeVert, he was balling out, but he was just throwing up brick after brick
yeah,
after brick. He was building a house, and it wasn't just him. It wasn't just him. Like I mentioned this in the previous pod. TLC, he had 19 in the first half, then 2, then 0 in the fourth quarter and an OT. You know, and that obviously you throw KD and Kyrie back in there, there's less of a burden on his shoulders to produce, right? But there are still question marks regarding the consistency of that second unit because obviously KD and Kyrie cannot play every single minute of every game. That's just not feasible. So what are you guys gonna do when they're not on the floor? That's my biggest thing.
yeah. No, that's definitely a good point. I think you're right in consistencies and stuff, but we do have a 10-11 man roster, and now that Dinwiddie's out, just 10 man, which is fine. I think that part, I slightly disagree. I think our bench mob is fine. What we need though is that defensive ability. Like we need to get better defensively. I do appreciate your point though. I think it's a good point. I slightly do disagree though because I actually watched the Nets game as being a Nets fan and having it and as my network. Um, but yeah, I agree with what both you guys said.
and even then, we're like one real quick. Steve Nash, he hasn't shown. You could fix up the rotation a little bit by when like leaving KD on, Kyrie off, or then Kyrie, KD off. Just like you don't have to sit both of them just to bring them both back in to try and get that lead back. Just to fix up that rotation. It reminds me of like the same thing I used to watch OKC with PG and Russ. There was always one on and one off, and the offense would always move smoothly like that during the regular season, because we all know what happened in the playoffs. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's one of the main points I told my dad, another Nets fan, lifelong Nets fan. He was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like it seems weird that they have to play together." At the same time, what he told me was like, they're just it's the first few games, so they're just trying to feel like get used to each other on the court in the NBA game, and then time goes on, they'll definitely shift things around. But as of now, we're gonna shift gears a little bit to a team that we might not think are championship contenders. Well, teams that just aren't championship contenders in our eyes, but who might be. There's teams like Boston and you know, what else? What other teams? That's pretty much it. Boston, Denver. So let's talk about those two real quick. What do you guys think about Boston? Like, what's the weakness that Boston might have? Sandro, you can go ahead and start on this one.
Honestly, I can't think of anything right now because what we've seen so far, I've really right now I'm only focusing on the positives, and from what I've seen, it really feels like Tatum's been stepping up and Jaylen Brown's been stepping up, and from the games that we've seen, they're doing so well, and Kemba's not even playing.
Yeah,
They don't even have their third star there. Um, I do think that into the season we might feel the effects more of getting absolutely nothing for Gordon Hayward, losing 18 points a game. But I feel like because Tatum and Brown are stepping up, it might soften the blow a little bit. I don't
yeah.
know.
No, definitely, I agree with you. But Jordan, what do you think about Boston?
I think it comes down to efficiency in the shooting end. Like they feed off Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown shooting percentages, and whenever they shoot bad, the team again. It all comes down to leadership. The team does bad when the leader does bad. It's like a recurring thing. So I think when Jason Tatum plays bad offensively, the Celtics are gonna do bad. Because again, I mean, he's their main shot taker. So and Tatum's been balling. So I mean, if they can keep it up, I mean, I still don't have them. I never had them high up on the East. I still don't think. I think the loss of Gordon Hayward is going to be a big toll on them. But I think Jaylen Brown, like those young guys, stepping up big time. But I think
Yeah,
it's just shooting efficiency, really.
yeah, I kind of agree more with what Isandro said. I'm gonna disagree with you though. I think even though Jason Tatum, he might have a bad game here and there, but Jaylen Brown is more than capable of carrying himself, and he's shown it. So I'm just gonna disagree with that point. But overall, I think with them, we have to wait on Kemba, but also bench unit. Like their bench isn't as good, and big man play. Daniel Theis, he's solid. Tristan Thompson, he's solid, but a real true big man, I feel like they really should have tried to trade Gordon Hayward for Miles Turner. It would have been a perfect trade for both sides, honestly. But it didn't happen, and they got Tristan Thompson, who's solid, but just big man play and bench unit. They need to get that more worked out. They need to gel together more. But I think once comes back, at least their bench is going to be looking a little bit better once Kemba comes back, and Marcus Smart either shifts over to the bench or I don't know somebody else that they started. Um, but really, it's that big man defense. But as for go ahead, Risandro. You had something to say.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking because what happens when Kemba comes back? Is it going to be these three guys are balling out, or is it going to be like they kind of have to make sacrifices? What do you guys think?
I don't think it's sacrifice. I think Kemba's not Kyrie. Kemba, he's gonna want his players to play better, the ones that have been balling. So he's gonna like feed off of them, and then when they need a last minute bucket, if it's not Tatum, if it's not Brown, why not have Kemba Walker as your third option? Like that's crazy that he's your third option. So yeah, he's more than capable of being. It's fine. They'll work out. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I definitely want to see some more Kemba. I mean, we know what Kemba can do.
Yeah.
He's been in that MVP conversation before for a little short span throughout the season.
Yeah.
So if Kemba can just go back to that, because even last year we never saw that. You never saw the old Kemba who can drop like 50 points on your team.
Yeah.
And of course, you have Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Smart. You're playing more team ball, but you still want to be that dominant scorer that you were before. And it just comes down to taking advantage of every shot that you take.
Yeah.
So I think that's just Kemba has to do. Get out of that little barrier that he got going and
Yeah.
get back to the buckets.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be tough for him now too, though, because he is coming off an injury. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think with Boston, we all hit it on the nose. As for Denver, though, what do you guys think is their biggest weakness? Because they, Bubble Murray was a baller. Like he he was out of this world. Baby Jordan, but Michael Jordan, that is not this one. But he was balling out, and now it's like I don't know, man. Maybe he just got hot in the bubble. Maybe this altitude out there in Denver is not helping him out. So I don't know. I think with me with the Nuggets, obviously defensively they're not the same. And inconsistency, I think we've said that for a lot of teams, but this is a team that really proves that with Jamal Murray. Because we've seen it before. We've seen him do great in the playoffs where it matters most. So that's why I don't think it's that big of a deal. But during the regular season, in order to get into the playoffs, you have to win games. And Jamal Murray hasn't really been, he hasn't been anything too special for me, to be honest. Jokic did ball out the last game. For another one who's been a little inconsistent with me. But what do you guys think? Jordan, what do you think about Denver?
Denver, Jamal Murray. I mean, we saw. You hit it right in the nose. He did play like me in the playoffs in the bubble. But I think he definitely downgraded. We don't know what's going on with him. I guess playing that hard in the bubble, yeah, I guess it gets tiring. But I think, it's more just Jamal Murray stepping up really because Michael Porter baller, and I think even Jokic is gonna have a better year than AD. So that's you heard it here first. Gonna have a better year than AD. And I think he's gonna be the key again, because I still believe even last year he was the best player. Even though Jamal Murray just played out of his mind. So I think just those two once they get the flow going again, because Jamal Murray he's definitely not there yet. Like a lot of players though. So it's just gonna take time. For them.
Yeah, well, I respect that. What do you think, Sandro?
I believe Murray can turn it. I want to be positive and look at the sample that we were given in the bubble. I want to believe that Murray can turn it on when they need him the most. Not like pull an avatar and just disappear when they needed him the most, right? Because he's been averaging, he dropped 21 in the last game and it was a W. I'm trying to think like if they need him to, is he capable of replicating that form that he showed in the bubble? Instead of dropping 20, can you drop a 35? Can you drop 30? Can you drop another 40?
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest question mark regarding Murray.
Yeah, I think it's just that, right? Like, once he shows a little bit more consistency, I think that's when we're gonna really think that Denver, like, they have it, because he's shown that he has flashes of great games, and he showed in the bubble that he can be consistent. But now we're not in a bubble. Like, there's this traveling, obviously COVID protocols, but he has to really prove that now in the regular season. But as for other teams in the West, we have Dallas and Portland and Phoenix. I guess collectively, uh, what is one weakness that you guys have just for one of those teams? You guys could pick. You could just say, "Oh, I believe Dallas. This is their weakness," or whatever you guys want to talk about. So, Jordan, out of those three, which one do you want to talk about? What's their biggest weakness?
I think we should talk about the Mavs because I know for us we all had them in our top three. So, and what really is that weakness? Honestly, I don't even know.
I don't know either.
Luka Magic, man. Luka Magic. That's all I gotta say.
And they're getting Porzingis back eventually, right? When he's back from injury, and they've already been doing pretty decent.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think
Even though I think, yeah,
that could be weakness though because he is very injury prone.
That's what I was gonna say. That was gonna be my take on it. Just health. If Kristaps is healthy, and like I said it in yesterday's podcast, if Kristaps is healthy, that's my championship team. Because Luka's on another level. With Luka, I think the Mavs, we can't say that there's any weakness unless we talk about Luka. And my biggest weakness for Luka is his 3-point shot selection. because he has that step back, and it's a great move, and he's been balling with it, and he knows how to utilize it perfectly. But if he wants to like actually make that like his main move to where he's hitting on a consistent rate, he has to shoot better than 32% from three when he takes those step back shots, right? And 32% isn't bad, but it's not great either. It's well below league average. So that's one thing.
When he
So
get closer to that 40% clip, right?
yeah, it starts and it ends with Luca, and the other guys, they're point guards. They're solid, man. Jalen Brunson, super underrated. I love the way Jalen Brunson hustles, the way that he gets inside passing lanes. Like he's great. Um, but yeah, I think their biggest weakness is what can Luca do when it comes to his 3-point shooting, his 3-point shot selection, and a healthy Kristaps. If he's not healthy, Dallas can't do much. What do you guys have to say about it? And if you know,
Yeah, and it's crazy because when you think of a player and their signature moves, that's Luca's signature move, is step back three.
yeah,
That's what, like when we see in all ESPN House of Highlights, it's always a step back. But he actually people don't know that he shoots exceptionally pretty bad for him, for that being his signature move. He shoots
yeah,
pretty bad from three. So it's definitely like you said. He definitely has to step that up. Definitely bring up that percentage. So
yeah.
it's all on him, to be honest. Because if he gets that consistently, oof,
Over. It's over.
facts. Then
Yeah.
I'll put him at MVP. But right now he's overrated.
Yo, this guy,
he,
Kevin.
knew,
Big
he knew what he
facts.
was saying when he said that.
Anyway, but as for another team, like I said, I guess we can talk about Portland now because I know Isandro alluded to before. Isandro, what do you think is a big weakness for Portland?
Um, could be their second unit, maybe. I don't know. What
Yeah.
do you guys
Jordan, what do you think?
I mean, I think about how they're put together, and previous years with just Nurkic, Lillard, and McCollum, they were just dangerous in the playoffs. And now you add Carmelo, he's playing amazing, solid. He's playing that solid role for you. Um, then you add Covington, who's a great defensive piece.
Right.
He's a great shooter. So I think it's just equally balanced all around. Shooting, defensively, playmaking by even Nurkic, because he's also a great playmaker. So I mean, I don't really see a defense. I think it just comes down to consistency for Damian Lillard,
Mm.
because he's a very passive player, and I've said it many times before. And like every single year, even in the playoffs, there's times that he just have to take the ball and just ball hog. Like he'll make the clutch shots.
Yeah.
We always see that, but just keep on doing that because he'd be too passive. He just has to take over a little more. That's his team. Act like.
Go ahead, Isandro.
Yeah, so right there, me and Jordan, we're kind of struggling to find negatives for this team. Yet I don't really see them as like out and out contenders. It's kind of weird. Like I don't see this team like have any weaknesses per se. Like I feel like this is a really well balanced team, especially what we saw against the Lakers. But what do you guys think is missing from this team? If they don't
I,
have a weakness, do they have like something that they need in order to like get them over the hump?
I believe there is a weakness, and my thing, Jordan kind of said it. He said inconsistency. He said Damian Lillard is an inconsistency. My thing is inconsistency on defense. Because yeah, they got Covington, they got Derrick Jones Jr. Covington, probably one of the best defenders, if not the best defender besides AD in the NBA.
We know you love Robert Covington, bro.
Yeah, no, Robert Covington is awesome, man. I've always loved him. Back when he was in Philly and during the process, like he has been great. But that team, it's just defensive consistency. They need to show it more. Because we all know what Dame could do. We all know what McCollum could do. We all know what Nurkic can do inside. We all know what Melo can do. Even Rodney Hood, Derrick Jones Jr. Like I said, Gary Trent Jr., Anthony Simons. Like they have that, but it's defensively where you really just picked up Covington. That's it. Like yeah, Jones Jr. He's solid, but that's just because he's long. Like he doesn't really know how to move his feet laterally. You know, um, and it's just obviously Lillard and McCollum aren't known for their defense, whereas Lillard is actually a very underrated defender. If you didn't know, if you check the stats, obviously plus minus never really works for me, but there are other stats around there that you can see. Dame Lillard is a pretty solid defender. Um, but yeah, it's just showing more consistency, showing that you can actually play defense on a high level on a day-to-day, day in, day out, basis for that team. And just a backup point guard, I think, would be perfect for them. I love Anthony Simons, but there's just something that they're lacking, just off that bench. But even then, I still think that they are championship contenders. I don't think they're better than the Mavericks if Kristaps is healthy, but I do believe Portland is right up there. Um, but yeah, I think we can move on from this team and quickly just talk about Phoenix. What do you guys think is a weakness for Phoenix? And if even if we do find a weakness, does it really matter? Like, are they even gonna like do much noise in the playoffs? Like, what do you guys think? Isandro, you can go ahead on this one.
No, because I think you can kind of see this as a weakness, but because Chris Paul, he's there to kind of develop the young stars, and that's very exciting. I feel like that can be kind of a weakness because it's hard to contend and develop these young players at the same time. It's not impossible, but this feels like the kind of season where they just really want to gel together as a group, develop these young players, and just go on from there. You know.
Yeah, great point. What do you think? What do you think, Jordan? Your mic cut off, bro.
I was gonna go along the same lines as Isandro, right? Um, Chris Paul comes in. I feel like it's still building in the sense you're developing the players. Like DeAndre Ayton, he's their I'll say like the second most important player into becoming that contender of a team. Because Devin Booker, we know what he could do, and he's playing solid right now.
Yeah,
He's shooting great from percentage. You can already tell that Chris Paul is already bringing out the best in him. But it's all on DeAndre Ayton, really, on how long it's going to take him to develop. Because for some, it takes a while. For some, they learn quick. And I think for Ayton, he's going to learn pretty quick. So maybe throughout the end of the season, they could probably surprise people in the playoffs because they are going to make the playoffs. But I just think it's more of like a gelling situation overall with them.
yeah. No, I completely agree. I think with them, uh, I love Javon Carter. He's a great defensive player off their bench. But they need, a little bit more, like a lot more playmaking off that bench to just alleviate pressure off of Chris Paul. But I don't see them doing much in the playoffs. I think Aiton is still underrated. I hear you guys saying that development season. Yeah, Aiton is developed, and now he's just getting even better. Because like my but what I mean by that is that DeAndre Ayton, he's shown us that he can be great, but now with Chris Paul, he's proving it that he is great. He could be one of the best centers in the league. So it's really just a matter of backup point guard spot, I guess, and showing that that this isn't just a development season, that you guys are actually contending, which I don't think they are, but it's just having that mentality, I guess, like just having more of a yeah, like we got this mentality. But I do want to shift gears over to the Eastern Conference real quick because this is a team that we can talk about for days too. The Philadelphia 76ers. What is the Philadelphia 76ers' biggest weakness so far this season? Because we saw what they did in the offseason, bringing in Seth Curry, sniper, bringing in Danny Green, 3-and-D, drafting Tyrese Maxey, solid point guard. But what do you guys think is their biggest weakness in this season? Any of you guys can start, and if not, I can go ahead because I have something. But
You go first, bro.
yeah, okay. So yeah, I believe with them, it's it's crazy that I'm saying it, but it's 3-point shooting still. Because yeah, they picked up Curry, they picked up Green. Green, I don't know, man. He's looking a little off there in Philly too. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's his age. Like maybe age finally is catching up to him. But we still see that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. There are moments where it looks nice and it's like dang, like this is like old school basketball, like bully ball. But at the same time, half court offense. Ben Simmons needs to start shooting, even if he doesn't make them. Just shoot them. Like they're gonna dare you to shoot this entire time. Go ahead and shoot them. Like I think it's more so mental than it is the physical aspect of, because we all know Ben Simmons, best defender in the league. If it's not AD, it's Ben Simmons, and if it's not Covington, obviously, but Ben Simmons is definitely one of the best defenders in the league because he can guard 1 through 5, great defensively. But defense, yeah, you and Embiid are great, but offensively is where you guys need to prove it that you guys can work together. And we still don't see it as much. We don't see it as often, and it's sad to see because we know what they can be, but they have to prove it more. So that's my biggest thing: shooting, and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid just doing something a little different to try to really, really work well together. Um,
I agree because one of the biggest question marks we thought was answered was how's the shooting going to be on this team, and then they got two shooters, and then some people were saying, hey, they're good now. Yeah, they got some shooters. Yeah, problem solved. And I thought no, you got two shooters, and now even then one of them is being inconsistent. So you got one shooter, and now we have to look back into that recurring that recurring problem that keeps happening that we keep seeing the Ben Simmons Joel Embiid tandem. And I mean it's kind of hard to say, but I don't think it's not going to be bad, but I just don't think it's something that excels. Like
I agree.
I just don't think it's something that's going to like that you will never have them on any top 3 best duos in the NBA.
I agree. I
You know?
agree. They could be, but they won't.
Yeah,
What about you, Jordan? What do you think?
I mean, we look at all the pickups, and the only real solid pickup was Seth Curry. That's pretty much about it. Danny Green, he's digressed. He's one of those players. He got old. You really don't see shooters digress as they get older, because you always like JJ Redick, even Kyle Korver. I'll take Kyle Korver over Danny Green any day. But Ben Simmons is the liability in that team. Why? Because he can't do nothing offensively.
Yeah.
And I hate it when people compare him to LeBron because it's not even close. Because even LeBron at a young age, he was still a baller and he'll get you points differently than just driving in every single time. And he'll create even more plays because Ben Simmons, he's a great playmaker. But, in the fourth quarter, what can he do? Just force it out, and hope for a three to who? Danny Green? Nah. So 3-point shooting and Ben. But I think even Ben Simmons is more of a liability to that team than most people think.
if you had to keep one, would you keep Ben Simmons or would you keep Embiid?
Oh, Embiid is not even close.
Really?
Oh, it's not even close. Embiid, listen, I don't like Embiid either because he's a little crybaby. But Embiid on a really good team, he could be solid. And I think with Doc Rivers, they're gonna be a solid team. But again, it's all about Ben Simmons' development. And like Jason said, it's definitely mental. Because Ben Simmons, if he wanted to, shoot up the three. Because I feel like he could make it once in a while. I feel like he could definitely make it over Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook just stay shooting them threes. So why not just shoot them?
Right.
We live in an era in basketball that you just chuck up shots from three. Like, why not? Even how many centers have we seen nowadays shoot threes?
You're right.
Ben Simmons needs to grow a pair of nuts because he's a man and shoot a couple threes. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rondo said it best on the Smoke podcast, right? Like, you see these guys jacking up 17 threes. Why not shoot like 5 of them myself? Like, obviously use different words, but yeah, like he's right. And Ben Simmons is another one. However, I do disagree with you a lot. Ben Simmons is a baller. And if you put Ben Simmons on his own team, like that first season, his rookie season, not the year that he was injured, but the year after, when Embiid got hurt and he played, it was him, Bellinelli, Redick, Ilyasova, and Covington. Like that was the 5 on the floor. That team went on a 14-game winning streak, and they brought it into the playoffs and they destroyed. And why? Because Ben Simmons was utilized exactly how LeBron was in his first few seasons in Cleveland, as the primary ball handler with no true big and shooters around him. Like that, if Ben Simmons is able to have that team, kind of like a Giannis Antetokounmpo type player, except with Ben Simmons, I trust him a whole lot more than Giannis, honestly. But if I had Ben Simmons on his own team with shooters, just by himself, I think Ben Simmons MVP type season. He could be that great, and I think he's being held back by having Joel Embiid as a teammate. That's just my personal opinion. I think Ben Simmons, you're really underrating him as a player because Ben Simmons is definitely, in my opinion, top 15 NBA player this season.
Not at all. Kardashian curse. You forgot about that.
Hey, hold on. He dated a Jenner. That's all I'm gonna say. It was a
Even
Jenner.
worse.
Kardashian adjacent.
It-
Kardashian adjacent.
Same
He
thing.
went from pillows to pancakes. I don't know what he's trying to do.
Potato. But I got some opinions. I can see both. I can kind of see both perspectives because if you look at Ben Simmons, he created the most 3-point opportunities last year. However, there's gonna come a time in the playoffs when you're gonna need to shoot those 3-pointers yourself. You can't just dish out. We've seen time and time again LeBron dish out to somebody and then they break a wide open three. You got to know how to shoot that three. However, and this has been like the thing that we've been talking about, you need a leader. You need somebody who's going to run that offense. And Ben Simmons is obviously he's amazing defensively, but his bread and butter is being able to run an offense. He is a point forward. And if you look at the Toronto Raptors, who did they trade Kyle Lowry? Could they have traded Kyle Lowry? And they traded DeMar DeRozan, who was better, obviously, but Kyle Lowry was the one running that offense. And then they got a really good player, and then they won the chip. So having that leader, maybe Embiid is the better player. He probably is. Not debating that. But having that leader on the floor is way more important to your team than having somebody like Embiid.
Yeah. No, look, Isandro, I get you. Jordan, I don't get you. But you know what? I understand why you would understand. Like you would think Ben Simmons is overrated and all that junk, but I just don't see it, bro. I really believe in Ben Simmons and his capabilities, but we won't see it because he's in Philly alongside Joel Embiid. Um, Real quick though, I do want to end it off here, but I do want to just get you guys' takes real quick on a few little bit more teams. New Orleans. Is there any weakness that you guys see with New Orleans? I say defensively. Isandro, what do you think?
It is defensively, yeah.
Yeah, defensively,
It was cheeks.
yeah they
Buns,
they have solid defenders in Ball and Bledsoe and Adams, but Zion is not good defensively, and neither is Ingram. And off the bench, there's not really much besides Hart. So yeah,
they're losing by 22 points at the half to the Suns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like putting all the balls together. Just that's really it, to be honest. I think putting all the balls together, they play really good defensively because you know what they could do. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we also have other teams.
The Wizards
in Utah. I think Utah's biggest weakness is really just playmaking. There's too many ball handlers there with Mitchell, Conley, and Ingles, even Bogdanovich. And just their bench unit is not good. Backcourt depth is not good. All they have is Clarkson. They should have re-signed Moutier, but that's my take on it. You guys have anything to say about Utah? Yeah, I guess I'm on point on that one, right? So, yeah, so it's
Wizards.
Yeah. I wanted that to be my last team. Yeah, so because there's other teams. Orlando's 3-0 in the season so far. Orlando sucks though. We really have nothing to say about them. Knicks suck, Cavs suck. All these other teams are trash. Shout out Oklahoma City though, 27 picks. But Washington, defensively, they're not good. I said it before, and I'll say it again. They need to find defenders to really mesh well alongside Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. Because offensively, they're showing out. Russell Westbrook is balling, Beal is balling, but they're 0-4, and they lost to the Bulls and other crappy teams. Isandro, I want to get your take before we get to Jordan, because that's Jordan's team for now, because that's Russell. What do you think? What do you think?
That's his player. Yeah, I 100% agree with you because Bradley Beal dropped 39 points and they still lost.
And Russ had a triple-double.
And he had a triple-double. Triple-double Russ, right?
Yeah.
And they still lost. So it is defensively 100%.
Yeah. Now, Jordan, what do you think?
I mean, all I gotta say is Russell played 2 games. So it would have been 2-2. Nah, he played 2 games. Yeah.
Nope.
So, he probably did play 3.
But the 2 games that
No, all right. But like on a serious note, Russell's balling. I love it. And if they were winning MVP caliber season, but they're 0-4, so that's like out of the question. But I think it's watching them play, it's gelling. because defensively it's like they're lost. They don't know what they're doing,
Yeah.
and even sometimes offensively, it's just one of those teams. And honestly, like I don't really care because I had them up fifth or sixth, and it's just one of those teams that they're gonna gel later on in the season. They're still gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt.
I ain't worried. Beal is balling. Russ is doing his thing. So Hichimakararu has to do his thing like on offense. So yeah, and Bertans gonna do his thing with the threes. So I ain't worried, bro. Wizards in 4.
Okay, I don't think so. What you say, bro? What? It's
Well,
Yes, sir.
Hua.
Japanese legend.
Hachimura. No,
Rui. Okay.
we see it though. Like it's defensively, and I believe that they can gel. Russell Westbrook really does make his teammates better. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised with them being in a play-in tournament. I really wouldn't be surprised with that. I don't see them as 5 or 6. I see them definitely 7 to 10. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. And Toronto, another team that they might make the playoffs, they might not. They're not doing too well. You know, biggest weakness, they just lost a bunch of players. They sounded over. You can go ahead.
If I had to summarize everything we've been talking about, it kind of feels like a lot of teams have problems with inconsistency and or defensively, right? Kind of feels like that.
And that's fine because it is just the first 4 or 5 games of the season. So once once the teams get used to each other and all that junk, we'll see more of it, and we'll have a lot of fun throughout the season talking more about this. But as of right now, we're gonna end the video here. So I'd just like to say, Sandro, Jordan, thank you guys for joining here today on the Dunces Podcast. Got another episode here for you guys. Thank you to our subscribers for joining in. Please like, subscribe, and hit that like button. We appreciate y'all for joining, and peace.